So basically, I want to play this clip because this channel called Standing for Truth, they're a debate channel. I think they got a lot of good creation material. But the one thing Donnie, who runs Standing for Truth, he's a futurist. I don't care for futurism, but here he is pushing a bad futurism argument, and he absolutely destroys Jamie Russell, the Seventh Day Adventist, right here. And I'm going to explain how he destroys them. It's only a 9-minute clip.
This is let's see. I've tried to help Chris not be an idiot, but he doesn't seem to get it. So he wants me to be destroyed, but as you'll see, he doesn't get what's actually being said. This was also like a limited time. There's a lot of people wanting to watch this, but I just want to make sure I correct the false claims and the misrepresentation, which I've tried already. And clearly, like some of the comments that come up, Chris has not actually taken the proper time to understand the view he's critiquing. He just has a misplaced hate meant because of his experience and misunderstandings. So I was patient at first. I'm starting to get irritated because he's actively working against me when he shouldn't be, because we agree on so many things. But I'm not sure. So we can pray for Chris.
Before you respond, and some really great points, Kent, I think with what you're saying, Jamie, you would have to then make, if you notice here in Daniel 9:25 to 26, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. Beautiful prophecy of Jesus Christ, obviously dying for us, right? The sins of the world. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Right, so now we have a focus on the people of the prince. Some would say that was Emperor Titus when he came, destroyed the temple. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined, and he shall confirm the covenant. So the antecedent to the he is this prince here, which would at that time, the shadow fulfillment be Emperor Titus.
No.
But end times wise, dual prophecy fulfillment would be the Antichrist, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. So if I'm understanding you correctly, Jamie, are you saying that this he is Jesus?
Yeah, I'm suggesting that otherwise you have Jesus bringing the new covenant outside of the 70 weeks, because he gets cut off after it. And if you don't have the 70th week starting yet, then he's outside of the 70 weeks. And the only other point I'll make to that is just, if you look at Luke 3 really carefully, well, actually, there's two real quick points, but it says in the chapter 15, Luke 3, verse 15, it says, and as the people were in expectation, and it's regarding the Messiah, they think John is the Messiah. And so I would say they seem to think or be expecting Messiah the year Jesus starts his ministry. And I would say that would be perfectly on board with, the timeline for the 70th week to start right at his baptism. And then
Jamie, if I could ask you a real quick question.
Okay, so far, I don't think those first two X's were proper. I think Jamie was right, but it doesn't matter how good of points he might be making. I'm going to show you how he gets destroyed in a second.
Notice it doesn't matter that I made a devastating argument. And I don't mean that like, oh, look at me, I made a devastating argument. I just mean they're literally, it's what I said is a fact. If you believe Jesus has to fulfill the prophecy in the 70 weeks as allotted by the prophecy, you're essentially denying that Jesus did what the text demands that would have happen. So in other words, if he doesn't do it in the 70 weeks, he didn't fulfill the prophecy. If you didn't fulfill the prophecy, then you're dead in your sins. And that's just taking the text for what it says. Now, you can take Jesus' sacrifice for granted and take away the prophecy. That's probably the greatest prophecy in the whole Bible. You can do all sorts of things that they do and continue to do worse and worse as they have to, by constraint of the textual evidence that gets pointed out to them. See, at this time, Standing for Truth thought the 7 and the 62 were continuous from the decree until Jesus. But then when I showed him why that is a problem, now he's saying there's breaks in there. So now there's no time-sensitive data from the text that predicts Jesus' sacrifice. That's what he's saying now, which makes my argument even stronger because they were in expectation. And notice Chris just ignores that it totally devastates the whole premise of their view and says it doesn't matter because of this argument or he's about to destroy me, which has nothing to actually to do with any argument that's made. It just affirms falsely Chris's accusation of me not being a real historicist, but a futurist, because he misunderstands what I'm saying. So not only is there no argument presented, but the argument doesn't actually do anything to show that I don't think something about the text that Chris thinks. Me and Chris agree that it's historical, and he misunderstands what I'm saying.
Question.
Sure.
Because notice this, and in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. So who's the he that's causing the sacrifice and the oblation to cease?
That would be Jesus bringing an end to animal sacrifices.
Okay, well, wait a minute. What about Daniel 8:9:1, where it's talking about the little horn, the Antichrist? And notice here it says, and by him, the daily sacrifice was taken away.
I
So
think
we
that's
interpret
future.
Okay, so we heard it. He said, I think that's future. Boom, you're done, Jamie. You said it's future.
Okay, well, it's somewhat understandable, although he's jumping all over it. What do I mean by that? I mean, in the context of Standing for Truth's view, that this is prophesying Daniel 9:27 and the taking away of the sacrifice, which is kind of weird because if that hasn't occurred yet, and the sacrifices have been taken away by Jesus, I don't even know what that means. But I mean, it's future from the sacrifice of Jesus. So I guess I meant it like that. So the idea was that because I was thinking he thinks it's Antiochus Epiphanes, right, which was before the first century, as a type of the Antichrist of the future, right? So I'm saying it's future from that time. I'm not saying it's future. I believe that this represents the Antichrist during the Dark Ages, for 1260 years, you could say, during that time period, or within history, within the 2300 days, however you want, either way you want to look at it. I think it's the Catholic Church essentially taking away the ability of the people to see the true gospel, because they have a false gospel of like merit and works, essentially, and having an intermediary like Mary and priests instead of being able to directly go to Christ. And the word daily sacrifice, there's no word sacrifice in the Hebrew. It's the word, I can't think of the Hebrew word off the top of my head right now, but it essentially means the continual, and it's tied to the part of this the sanctuary that was like the showbread and the altar of incense, which was continually like displayed and representing certain aspects of Christ's ministry. And so what it represents about Christ's ministry is this is typing. So in other words, the Antichrist is suppressing the daily or the continual, no sacrifice there, although it's related to the things regarding the temple and the sanctuary, and which has sacrifices in it. But it's really a bad translation because the word sacrifice is not there in the Hebrew, the original Hebrew. It's just the word. It can be translated daily, or it can be translated like it's an adjective used as a verb. It's kind of it's kind of which should stand out to someone who knows Hebrew. So it's just a literal translation would be the continual, and then in the context it would be in regards to those aspects of the sanctuary items, or the fact that it was continually active in the temple. So that represents Christ's ministry. So this is a symbolic, amongst apocalyptic symbolic chapter here. It's the spirit behind the false church trampling the truth of the everlasting gospel that is in Christ. That's what is being suppressed. And you see that in the language of Daniel 8 through 11 and through 14, where he's trampling the prince of the host, which in the Hebrew also that phrase prince of the host is in one other place, and that's Joshua 5. And in Joshua 5, it's the captain of the host of heaven, or the prince of the army of heaven is another way you could translate it. It's translated differently in Joshua 5, but in the Hebrew, it's the exact same phrase. And it's only here and in Joshua 5. And the scene is Joshua seeing a sudden heavenly being with a sword drawn, or maybe he doesn't know it's a heavenly being yet, right? And he says, are you for us or are you against us? And he introduces himself as Jesus or the angel of the Lord, or Michael, perhaps, depending on your view. Either way, it's the eternal Son of God, because he bows face down to him. And the angel doesn't say, stop worshiping me. He says, take off your sandals. This is holy ground. So the view here is clearly Christ, the Prince of the Host, okay? And his continual ministry in the heavenly sanctuary is being trampled by this power that comes out of Rome, out of the little horn, who is the type of the final Antichrist. Daniel 7, Daniel 8, Daniel 11. Daniel 9:27 is not informed by this verse whatsoever, other than it has to do with the ministry of Christ and the ministry of God to his people and the way that's done. But you have to understand the genre and the context, and it's the connection of this figure in Daniel 8 with the one mentioned in which kingdom he comes out in Daniel 7 and a Daniel 11, and how that correlates to the parts of Revelation. So no, I think it's historical, just like you. So thank you for agreeing with me, and I look forward, Chris, to your retraction and correction. God bless you.